let's get started here. So this is the Good Neighbor meeting for Modern Horizons. They submitted a zoning map amendment, we call that rezonings. 9.83 acres on the east side of Scales Bend Road, just south of Fox Run Drive. Property rezoning would be from ID Interim Development to RS4 PAD. That's a typo there, sorry. That's single unit residence, planned area development. They indicated on their application that this would be for age restricted community with 34 single unit residences and a clubhouse common area on one lot. Here's the property location. I can scroll back to this if we have questions kind of about the area, that would be fine. Just kind of want to go over a couple of ground rules. Nick Burgess with Communications is here with city staff to kind of guide us along, and as people come in the waiting room, he'll let you in and then kind of queue you up if you would like to speak. We do these Good Neighbor meetings, and apologize if you were here in the fall for this as kind of a reprise, but we do these to give the applicant the opportunity to share details of the application, answer questions, and hear any feedback that you might have prior to formal consideration by the Planning Commission. This is the very first step in the process. Planning Commission may consider this request as early as April 4th. They would vote to provide a recommendation that moves to City Council, and City Council would consider the request at 3 separate readings. In order for rezoning to be approved, it needs to be done via an ordinance, and that requires 3 readings. We do value your public input. We do want to hear from you. In order to be part of the public record, we do need any comments to be in writing, and email is perfectly acceptable for me. I'll share my contact information here in a second. Okay, so how does zoning work? All property in the city of North Liberty has a zoning designation. Many of the residents in the Fox Run neighborhood are zoned residential. Allows for a limited number of uses like single family homes, schools, and churches and parks. But certainly you as a property owner, as well as other people, have the opportunity to request a zoning change to allow different uses, allow for smaller lots, and those types of things. So it is somebody that has a right to move forward with requesting. We do ask that you listen respectfully without interrupting. Never really had this as a problem, just like to say these as ground rules. We ask that you criticize ideas, not individuals, and give everyone a chance to speak. Once the initial presentation is made, I will give the applicant an opportunity to kind of say what they want to say. It's really their meeting. I'm here to answer questions about procedural things, about process things, and things like that. If your position is that you object to the proposed development, which I have no problem with, you don't necessarily need to state it here. You just feel free to email me, and I'll incorporate your email or however you get me a written document into the public record. So anything that you do provide as far as comments go or your objections, we provide those to the Planning Commission and City Council. As I understand it, if you do want to speak, there's a little hand raising in the top right. Just raise your hand and Nick's going to kind of call you like in groups of 3. Just so we can just move this along pretty well. I think that worked pretty good last time we did this. And that's me, Ryan Rusnak. There's my email. There's my phone number. I'm pretty accessible, I think. Just feel free to reach out to me if you have questions. Certainly you may not feel comfortable speaking in this format. That's perfectly fine. If you want to share your thoughts or have questions with me, please reach out to me. I'm happy to talk to you. And yeah, if you do have written comments, feel free to email me to the email address. Okay, so again, as I mentioned, this is to RS4. Not all rezonings require a preliminary site plan. A PAD does, and it is tied to the approval. If approved, minor adjustments can be made, but overall the development must be consistent with the approved preliminary site plan. The reason they are requesting the PAD is to allow for multiple single family, or we call them single unit residences, on one lot. Normally you have to be on a separate lot. And that's pretty much the purpose of asking for this PAD. So it'd be similar somewhat if you're familiar with I see a question from Molly. You don't see the email on screen. I'll go back to it, Molly. Not all, I apologize. So this is for multiple single family units on one lot. So again, the site plan, if this ultimately is approved, gets tied to the rezoning, and ultimately what they're showing is what should be built. And Nick provided my email in the chat. Thank you very much, Nick. Here was the site plan that was provided. I did get a revised site plan. I don't think it changed drastically. I think the size of the clubhouse had changed a little bit. And here are some renderings of the designs that I was provided. So kind of with that, that's all I have from an introduction standpoint. Again, I'm here to answer any procedural questions that you have, but I'll turn it over to the applicants. I don't know, Corey and Melissa, if you're on. I would ask you to kind of say some things, and then we'll open it up to questions.
All right, thanks, Ryan. So the PUD also, it allows us to do a commons building. I want to kind of point that out to not just single families on one lot, but basically this consists of, it's a gated community with 34 homes and a common building. It'll have amenities like the biking trail. We're going to connect from the south side of the property to the north side of the property. The homes will consist of different elevations and multiple different floor plans. The common building will have outside seating areas, a pickleball court, a pool, fire pit, and other amenities on the outside of it. The inside of the clubhouse, the inside of the clubhouse will have a library, an exercise room, and an indoor pickleball court, and then we set it up with a kitchen and kind of like a rental space so that if family members came over, they could all like kind of meet in an area that would house, you know, their whole family in that area and kind of be more secluded and private. Other than that, it's basically divided up into lots. But again, it's a PUD, so the lots don't really exist, but each single family house will have its own area of it, you know, that they could fence or whatnot. But
so
again,
Corey, is this kind of like a, sorry, Corey, this is Ryan. So is this kind of like a condominium? Will they own the land, or will it be common area and they just, yeah. And how is, I guess, how is maintenance? I mean, is the association take care of the maintenance on the building, and then I guess they would maintain the private drive that goes around and things like that?
Yeah, so everything is set up as one lot, as a PUD is, but it's kind of separated out by unit numbers. But everything, the green space will all be maintained. The snow removal will be maintained. The units will be taken care of and maintained underneath one umbrella of the homeowners association for everything. Other than that, that's really all we have. I guess I'm open to comments.
Whoops, I'm muted here. So this is where we turn it over to comments. So if you want to raise your hand, I think Nick will kind of call you out and then ask you your question, give your comments, and we'll just kind of proceed in that manner.
Great. We'll start with the first three, which I've got Chris Hoffman, Kevin. I'm sorry, I'm gonna not pronounce your last name, Kevin, because I'm gonna mispronounce it. Kevin M, Sarah Keedy, Beth Brittle. Sorry, that was four. So we'll start with those four. Chris, go ahead and unmute and ask your question, please.
Thanks, Ryan. This is kind of more for you than Corey right now. These lots, I want to go back, Corey. I believe the lots are not going to be owned by the individual tenants. Are these going to be? Are they going to own the buildings, the homes themselves, or will they all be rentals? I assume they're going to be. They're going to own the buildings.
Yes. So each person that comes in and buys the house will own the house.
Okay, and then
Exactly. Oh, sorry.
And then the other question I had then for Ryan, if you could, and I know that this is putting you on the spot, how much of a lot, what would be the equivalent, I guess, lot size on average for each of these homes? There are obviously some bigger ones in the corners on the outside and those littler ones on the inside. But is it easy at all to provide an equivalent measurement? I know them as RS4, RS6, so on and so forth. Would there be an easier way for you to assign some type of apples to apples there for me?
Well, so we did, I don't know if I could give you an exact lot, but we did RS4. RS4 is what most of, I think, if not all of the Fox Run subdivision has as far as the zoning goes. I think the major difference you're going to see, Chris, is the homes are a little bit closer than what you would normally see in an RS4, and RS4 is single unit zoning, and the 4 stands for essentially 4 units to the acre, or 10,000 square feet. There's 43,000 plus feet in an acre, and the lot sizes are, for an RS4 would be 10,000 square feet. So overall, from the overall property standpoint, I think when I did the math, it was under that 4 units to the acre, and so the RS4 made sense in this case.
Okay.
I would generally think you're probably close to that, because most of the lots, most of these are kind of the lots, and then you just have the common area building, so you'd have to subtract that out in the middle. But generally speaking, it's less than that 4 units to the acre, which a normal RS4 subdivision would be.
All right, thanks, and I appreciate you letting me put you on the spot there.
Thanks, Chris.
This is Kevin. My question is, you said this is a gated community. Do you mean physically gated at the driveway? And if those driveways are, or that private drive is to be gated, what is the plan for traffic management for people trying to enter their code to get in and out of there and avoid traffic pileups on Skills Bend?
Oh, I'm sorry, I had you on mute there. So it is a gated community, and the stacking of traffic, I don't see that being an issue. That each tenant will have a remote inside of each vehicle. So when they come in, it'll automatically lift that gate, and then traffic can flow through. I suppose if there was 2 or 3 people, there could be an issue, but the gate, once they get close to it, it automatically opens up. So I don't see it being an issue. Trying to get in and out, I guess.
Okay. I guess I'd like to see more. Skills Bend is a very busy road to begin with. I guess I'd like to see maybe from the city some better traffic analysis. With gates, because you got a 55 plus community, and not everybody in that age range is technically savvy. So I like the idea of remotes over a keypad, but I am concerned about traffic backup. So I guess I'd like to see the city do a little more investigating on that, if that's possible. But thank you for answering.
Yeah, I do appreciate that comment. We had a similar review for, we have, it's not exactly the same, but we have Vintage Estates on South Jones Boulevard, but that's single entrance in, but it's 30 units. They do have a gate there, but we did. So what you're reviewing, what we would be reviewing at this stage is what we call preliminary site plan. It's just, it just provides some of the general details about where buildings and where stormwater features are, and where the clubhouse is, where the roads are. When we actually get into the construction plan review, we will get further into those details of, spacing. Certainly we need a fire truck to be able to pull in there. And be behind the gate and make sure that they can open the gate through whatever means to be able to serve. But I appreciate the comment. It is something we certainly will look forward if this is able to advance to the next step.
This is Sarah Keaty. I also have comments on the gated aspect of it. I know over at Vintage Estates, or whatever it's called, they basically have the parking garage lift gates, and it feels very industrial, and there's a large cinder block pillar kind of in the middle that divides one lane from the other. To me, that just says that, you know, this is an exclusive neighborhood. We're closed off. We don't want anything to do with the surrounding areas. And I just find that interesting coming from a standpoint last fall when you guys brought us the project. You kept saying how much you wanted this to feel like a, you know, down home neighborhood, and you wanted to be part of the community, but yet here you are, you're gating off this community. From an aesthetic standpoint, it doesn't fit with our neighborhood. And then from a personal standpoint, it doesn't feel like you want to be included in our neighborhood, and you don't want to get to know your neighbors. It just feels like you're very uppity and exclusive. So I would like to know more about this whole gating aspect of it. And, you know, obviously it's not going to stop kids from wandering onto the property because, you know, they can simply walk around it. So if that's the purpose of it, it's not going to work.
I'm going to let Melissa speak on this one, but well, she'll speak on it.
So essentially, same as Vintage Estates, this is a co-op. This our plan last fall did not get to go through. It changed. You know, the city put a moratorium. Everybody was essentially against the larger building. So plans had to change to make this work. And a co-op is different. You own your parcel, but you pay a portion of everything else. So they are literally paying the lump sum for their community building, for their pool, for their upkeep, for their maintenance. And so, yeah, insurance, everything that goes into that. And so those fees they are paying, that is why it's gated. So they can ensure, you know, that somebody doesn't try to go use the pool there and essentially a kid falls in. You know, it's to protect not only the liability of their co-op they bought into, but it's also to protect, it's an insurance requirement too. I mean, right now in Johnson County, if you put a pool in the county, you're required to put a fence around it. You're required certain restrictions. And so that's kind of what we are following. And Vintage Estates is also a co-op. It's exactly the same thing. That's what it is. You're buying into a co-op. You're buying a share into this property. You get to share the pickleball courts. You get to share all of the indoor amenities as well as the outside. And so that's what we're doing.
So is there not a better way to gate that off than an industrial parking lot garage arm? I mean, it just, again, like I said, it doesn't fit with the aesthetic. And what is to stop a child from walking around that onto the property? You know, if...
Sorry. No, ours will be different. I agree. I actually agree with that. I wouldn't call that a gated community. I would call that a gated entrance, I guess. You can still walk through someone's backyard to access that. No, we're talking about something totally different, and we aren't, I mean, necessarily doing those arms. There's lots of communities in Florida, for example, that have gates you pull up to, and it's gate you enter. We really haven't gotten into the details of that specifically. We were just kind of working on the site plan, the idea of it. We're not saying it has to be that same thing that they have done.
So I assume that the pool area will be gated, and there's going to be a kind of code or something like that to protect from non-owners getting in there without some kind of connection to the owners.
Yes, for liability reasons. We have to.
Okay. And so would you explain the co-op and what that means versus the condominium ownership? Okay.
Yes. So it is a little bit different. Basically, what they have is everybody buys into a share of the co-op. And so it's like you own your property, but really it's all owned under the co-op. You buy into a share, and that gives you an agreement, and you're allowed to own that property as long as you own that share. But then it also shares the responsibility of the overall, the community building, the pool. And what it does is it makes it more affordable. So you have a monthly fee that you pay, which is higher than like an association fee. And that also covers your master mortgage, your insurance, your lawn care, your snow removal, everything that would be included in what is a PAD. And then that makes them more affordable. So instead of, I mean, right now construction on a 1,400 square foot home is $400,000. We are trying to make it more affordable, just like, you know, vintage estates where you can buy it for $230 to $275, but you're buying a share into that. And then you have this fee that covers the master of the rest of the payment. And just to make it an affordable 55 and older community with the amenities that are also covered. It's a lot harder with an association as far as what your expense would be and coming up with a common expense. Basically, you get an overall valuation of the property that says what each share is worth. So you'd get an appraisal done. It would tell you the total value of all of the property with the commons building. You would divide up the commons building by the number of units, and then you would divide up by the number of units and their square footage. You base it off each square footage, and then that comes up with a share value.
And so that works that same way with the property taxes where you divide it up by square footage of ownership?
Yes. Correct.
Okay. Can you give us an idea of what the co-op fees are at Vintage Estates so that we have an idea?
At Vintage Estates, they're 18. I know at Vintage Estates, they were $1,870 a month. We haven't dove deep into ours. Our building's a little bit different. They have a few different things that we're doing not the same as them. So we haven't dove into that, but I know theirs are $1,870 a month.
Okay. How many units have you guys, or PADs have you guys done so far?
Over the years, we've done quite a few PADs throughout different cities. This is the first actual co-op that we've done, though.
Yes.
Are you from Iowa, or where are your headquarters?
Yes, we're from Iowa. Well, Iowa City is our base station,
Okay.
where we're based out of. So.
And these are all on slab foundations?
Correct.
No, they have basements.
No, these are.
slabs. Sorry about that.
These are the patio homes.
Okay. And is there any kind of storm shelter access?
There is, so in the design of these patio homes, there is a storm shelter that can be designed into the garage or into the unit itself.
Okay.
And we're working through the details on that. Again, these are the floor plans, are base models, so.
Okay. So there's 4 plans total right now.
There's actually
6.
6.
Or 5.
Okay. Okay. And one of the concerns I have is about guest parking. It doesn't look as though there's much in the way of guest parking. How many cars could fit on a driveway?
So they're all 2-stall
cars.
garages with 2-stall parking in front, and then just there's some guest parking up by that commons building in the front.
So if you look at each unit, they could have 2 cars inside and then 2 cars outside on the driveway. Typical driveway is going to be roughly 30 feet. So 2 cars or 2 trucks should fit.
And then there is like four additional spots in the center to the east of the property towards that detention basin.
Oh, okay. All right. All right. Well, I live behind the development right now, and I'm curious on the water retention ponds. What is the purpose of those? I mean, I understand for water retention, but are you not hooking up to the city sewers and stuff, or what's going on with that?
It will all be city water and sewer, yeah.
It's city water and sewer, but in any PAD or any development that you do, you have to retain every square foot of water on the property. So when it rains, we have to contain all that water and slowly release that into a storm intake that flows down into other detention basins or streams or wherever they go in the future. So that's why these are shown blue, but they're actually dry basins. So in a 100-year flood or 100-year rain, I should say, not a flood, but a 100-year rain calculation, these detention basins will collect all that water, fill up, and then slowly release out downstream so that we don't flood any of the neighbors or have any issues with water flow from our lot onto your guys' lots.
Okay.
Yeah, and this is Ryan from the city. I mean, these are just preliminary, and we ask for these just for them to show the location of and there are stormwater intakes in those general locations. So when we get into the construction phase that I mentioned earlier, we'll actually look at how much impervious surface they have, how much water is being directed to these areas, and they'll have to be adequately sized to city standards. But again, these are just general locations of where they would be. But they are required, as Corey mentioned, to retain their stormwater. Fox Run was built at a time when we didn't require that. Hence no ponds except for the newer section of Fox Run. But that's the reason that you see those.
Okay, thank you.
All right, I'm going to go to our next three. We've got Sloan Tyler, Eric Rudham, and John Lohman in that order. Go ahead, Sloan.
Thank you. I have a few questions, so maybe I'll ask them one by one, or Nick, if you want me to get back in the queue, I can do that too. But I guess my first question is just, can you explain why this property, this particular plan doesn't fit our neighborhood? This is a, residential subdivision, and this is completely contrary to the character of the neighborhood. So I just was wondering if you could kind of explain why you would want to put this particular business in the middle of our neighborhood and not maybe in one of the open spaces to the west of town where there's open space and there's already high density housing. So just could you kind of talk about why our neighborhood?
Well, we like the area just because of the seclusionness of having it kind of more private, having the walking trails, having the amenities, like with the ponds and the detention basins around the area, the park space to the south of this, the future park that's supposed to be coming in off of 965 to the north. So there's a lot of different amenities around there. They can walk into town to the coffee shops. It's in close proximity to some of the commercial stuff. So that's kind of why we looked at the area. This is a single family housing complex. It's not multifamily. It's not duplexes. It's not anything like that. So it's basically the same thing that's on the adjacent lots, but just smaller and I guess tighter setback lines. I mean, there's 10 foot between the homes. So, I think those lots behind us probably are 10 to 15 foot setbacks. So they'd have a little bit larger setbacks on them. But again, and this is single family backing up to single family, and we like the area.
Okay. We like the area too. And this just doesn't fit the character of the neighborhood. I appreciate why you like it, that it's secluded and quiet. You would completely be changing that. But my next question is about who monitors the age requirement. Is that on you to make sure that everybody living there is 55 years old? I'm just worried about the deterioration of the neighborhood after the initial 55-year-olds buy the properties. Like, what will happen next and who will be in charge of monitoring that?
That'll actually be in the requirements of the covenants and the restrictions. There is age approval, and when someone sells, the co-op actually gets involved. Our attorney would be the one drafting all those documents and preparing everything. And you can, in traditional co-ops, have someone younger, but the one that purchases the home has to be 55 plus. Now, if they have their grandchild who's 16 move in with them, you can't necessarily restrict that, but the purchaser has to be 55 and older, and it will always have to be that way. Anybody purchasing it would have to meet requirements.
And they have to live there.
Yeah.
Okay. And then I had one thing to confirm, and then my last question. You said these houses will be between $230 and $275 or $75,000.
That's our rough numbers right now, but I mean, construction has changed daily for the last 2 years. So basically what we have to do is have to get an overall appraisal of the property with the commons building, divide it up by the shares, and then get it based off square footage. So for example, in the vintage estates, their per unit was 250,000. And then if there were upgrades over and above that, they added that. So let's say there was 5,000 in upgrades, it was 255. We don't know, because by the time we go through all this process, we have to bid everything out again. But that is, yes, that is our estimate.
Okay. And then my last, oh, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say too, you got to, that's the unit price. The land price is not factored into that. So if you throw the land on top of that, these units would be $400,000.
Yes.
So you can't just look at, okay, you're selling them for 235. Well, there's a mortgage that's tied to that they'll be paying on over and above what the house value is.
Yes. For example, the Vintage Estates, the actual approximate value is $440,000 per unit, but they sold them for $250,000 a unit because the rest was a master mortgage, and that is what that monthly fee goes towards.
So,
okay,
I guess value wise, it compares with what's in the area, I guess.
well, that was kind of my question, just how do these units fit in with the neighborhood? So that kind of answered that. So my last question is going back to what Chris asked at the beginning of the meeting. And this is what I thought he was asking. And this is what I wanted to know was if you were going to build to scale to Fox Run on this property, and this is probably a Ryan question, how many houses would be on this property? We know it's not 34. Is it 10? Is it 8? I'm just trying to get a sense of, obviously this is way more than per acre than what we have right now in Fox Run. But Ryan, do you, in 9 point whatever acres this is, how many houses would go on that if it was just being built to character in Fox Run?
Well, if you're dedicating public roads and you have outlots for stormwater detention, you're probably in the so if you look at Fox Run just to the east there and they didn't have stormwater, I'd have to do the calculation to all areas, but you're probably in the range of 2 units to the acre, probably. So, you're probably in the, with 10,000 square foot lots, probably 18 to 20 units or some ballpark around there.
Okay. Thank you.
Eric, go ahead.
Yeah, quick question. I got a couple of questions written down. What's the design of the perimeter fence? Around kind of the 3 back sides of it, or the 2 sides in the back. Is that what's that going to look like, or do you have a concept of that yet?
Yeah, what we're proposing is just a black chain link fence that'll surround the property. That's okay. All we have so far.
Okay, and will that be on it? Your drawing doesn't appear to have a fence on Scales Bend. Is that correct?
Scales Bend will have a fence down through there.
Okay, you will be 360 fencing.
Yes.
Okay. Looks like there's in each kind of chunk there are all the houses appear to be identical. So like 14, 15, 14 through 24 all appear to be identical. 25 through 34 all appear to be identical.
If I could jump in right here, this is Ryan from the city. What I've talked to Melissa about is, and this came up during Vintage Estates, right? That from a site plan standpoint, what you're looking at now, the best thing for them to show is what would be a maximum footprint, or what is the maximum boundary a building would fit within that envelope. Because what happens is people will come in and they'll pick their design. So it's difficult for Corey and Melissa, and this is just from experience from Vintage Estates, to say, we're going to put this unit here, we're going to put this, because inevitably someone comes in and says, well, I want to put this unit over here. And so what I've indicated, so they don't know. They have examples of designs that could get built. What I've, again, encouraged is, show me what the maximum footprint for these buildings are. We have code requirements for variability with, you can't just have a bunch of houses that are exactly the same. in a row. So the code takes care of that. So they'll be subject to whatever those design standards that we have. But I just wanted to add that because that was some correspondence I've had recently with Melissa.
Sounds good. Yeah, I appreciate that. Just looking at it, there seem to be chunks, but yeah, if someone in house 12 chooses a different one than house 13, chooses a different one than house 11, they're not all going to be the same. 23-0009, and 4 of them in a row. So cool. Thank you. Ryan, this is probably for you. Are there any traffic study requirements in the future for this, either by the developer or by the city?
No, they wouldn't be required for something like this. This isn't a high enough density that there's, and I know that there's a perception, and I'm not saying it's not real, that there is traffic on Scales Bend. I know a lot of people use this road, that this isn't a type of development that would warrant, a traffic study. Something that we had over there with the new Jones Boulevard extension, that was an 80-acre development. We required a traffic study at that point, which actually showed that they needed a traffic signal on Penn Street. But something usually on an average for a single family home, I think the trip generation per day, and it's a little lower for retirement. If you're just in a regular subdivision, it's roughly 9.55 is per unit. So if you math that out for 34 units, that is the amount of traffic that you would expect throughout the day. And typically, if it is a retirement community, that tends to be a little bit less.
Sounds good. Thank you. And then, I didn't see any commons building plans. I think you said it's a single story or the clubhouse. Just curious if those plans or when those plans would be available.
Yeah, you can. Here's the slide with some renderings of some homes. And correct me if I'm wrong, Corey and Melissa. It's the one on the bottom right is the clubhouse.
That is correct. Yeah, the bottom right's a clubhouse facility.
I think this was a question that came up, but it seems apparent that these are all one-story buildings and there's no basements and things like that.
Cool. Well, thanks guys for being on. I appreciate your answering questions. I'm all in support of this. It's not going to do anything to our neighborhood, but neutral values for it. It's certainly going to look better than a disintegrating farm property that continues to look worse each year. So I applaud you guys for doing something for this. So thanks a lot, and hope you come to the neighborhood.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Go ahead, John.
Yeah, so I just had a question and then a comment. So my question is, does Solon State Bank still own the land, and what's your arrangement? If so, what's your arrangement with Solon State Bank on the land?
Yes, we have a contract with them currently, and it is subject to city approval.
Okay, well, I've lived in the neighborhood with my family for over 20 years, and we think it's the best neighborhood in America. And I think this development would negatively impact our neighborhood and not make it the best neighborhood in America. And there's an opportunity for the neighbors to object to this, and I object to it. I object to the rezoning of this. And people have asked me, do you like this one better than the last one? And I say, you know what, I do like this one better than the last one. But as the people that live in the neighborhood now, we don't have to settle for just okay. We can continue to fight for preventing developments like this from happening in Fox Run and ruining the character of Fox Run. And so I would encourage all of the neighbors, particularly the landowners within 200 feet, to object to this. We just simply don't have to settle for developments that are going to be coming in every couple months and trying this and trying that. We can object, and I'm not in favor of this, and I encourage you not to be in favor of it as well. Thank you.
All right, I've got Molly, Melanie, and Sarah up next. The next week, Molly, go ahead.
Hi, this was addressed a little bit earlier, and while there's no traffic study, we live right on Scales Bend, Roan Corner, Scales Bend, and Black Bend, and there is significant traffic going very fast. So while it may not constitute a study, would at least a evaluation on the speed limit or anything like that be looked at?
Yeah, so we've done, this is Ryan from the city. I've shared a folder with some folks, but I will put some data in there that I will share. We've had our metropolitan planning organization, which looks out for the greater transportation needs of the Iowa City area. Because we've had several requests, so we've asked them several times about the speed. Should we reduce the speed limit on Scales Bend Road? What they've continuously told us, and most recently it's been within a year, is that the speed on Scales Bend Road is adequate and the data does not support reducing that speed limit. We've asked several times, but that's the data. I can provide that data to you guys. I will put that in the shared folder. Let me see if I can put a link in the chat box of that folder. I'll need some time to put it in the folder.
Yeah. Okay. Well, fascinating. Yeah, that'd be greatly appreciated because, like I said, with the additional traffic, understand the traffic, not calling for a stoplight, but just an evaluation of the speed limit. It sounds like, and I know you guys, this has always been an issue. We've been out here for, over 10 years, 16 years, and it's always been a concern. And I would just think with this additional traffic, it would even be an even greater concern with the speed at which people come through here, especially during the summer. So I think that's all I had. Thank you.
Melanie, go ahead.
Oh,
hi. So I have a couple questions. Earlier you said something about $1,870 a month. Is that it? That's the cost of everything that a person would pay, or that's on top of their mortgage? You were comparing it to the other property that was similar to this. So can you tell me, if a person bought into this, like what do you think their monthly figure is?
So yes, this is over and above their mortgage, and a lot of times what people are doing is they're downsizing into these, and so they have equity in their homes and they use that towards the down payment. So their mortgage is not really that much. And then yes, the 1870, for example, that Vintage Estates does, that includes lawn care, snow removal, building maintenance. It actually includes repair costs, creates a reserve fund for, stuff's going to get old. And part of being in a co-op is eventually your unit needs updated. So there is a reserve fund that goes also into updating cabinets, flooring, and inside your own unit. So that 1870 actually goes towards those funds as well. There's a lot of stuff. I know, for example, in theirs it is property taxes, the jumbo mortgage payment, maintenance of the common areas, insurance, cable and internet, salary for whoever is going to manage the property, as well as the maintenance person, because these are maintenance free. So if you have an issue in your unit, you can call the maintenance person and then they would come and they would, it could be some brick fell off, or, you had some shingles that got taken off in a storm. There's somebody that you call directly that manages everything for you.
Sure. So when I look at the 1870 on top of everything, I think that's really expensive for a single, like a home that has no basement, a 2-stall garage. I know what my mortgage is and I don't pay anywhere close to that. And I have to do my snow removal, but so that seemed like a lot to me. And then, so why do you insist on a co-op and doing this as compared to just building homes that match the area? So
because it's not affordable. You can't right now with building costs and with the land costs, you can't make it affordable at all. Then there's what you're doing is essentially everything right now. New construction in 1,400 square foot is $500,000, and it's not affordable. And unfortunately, that's the way our economy has gone. It has gone to where there is nothing affordable. And the 55 and older, who many of them, you don't retire at 55, you retire at 65 or later, and you're on a fixed income. So this is a way for them to use equity and do things. Like a lot of them use equity from their homes, and they buy these houses in cash. They don't even necessarily have much of a mortgage on it. So their payment is the little bit of their mortgage, and then that 1870. So a lot of times it does actually equal out to what a traditional, if they had to buy a house at $400,000, it equals out to that same payment, but then they're also maintenance free. So if they're snowbirds and they want to leave and go south for a few months, they don't have to worry about their unit being taken care of.
Yeah, I guess I just don't see it that way, but thank you for explaining. And then, so I guess you say retirement village, so retirement, no basement. I live in Iowa. I would want a basement. The pool, they can use the pool for how many months? I guess I'm just not getting the whole concept. And so, what about vintage estates? Are they full, or how many units are there? I'm not familiar, so I'm curious.
To my knowledge,
there are 30 units over there total. I think there's maybe a couple left, but there aren't many left.
Yeah, I guess I would just have to say, living here, I like the area too. I would not be for it. It just doesn't make much sense to me for the cost. No basement. If I was over 55 and I'm close to that, it wouldn't be something that I would look into. So I guess I just would, like to note too that I think I would oppose it. I think if you want to keep the area and put up homes that, are similar, I think that's great, but I would not be for this. Thank you.
Sarah, go ahead.
Thank you. First of all, I want to thank you guys for going back to the drawing table and starting over after hearing the concerns from last fall. But there's a couple things that I'm curious about, and this is going to be more for Ryan to answer, but there is a new subdivision that's going in where the blue house on the corner of Scales Bend and 965 is, and where the substation is. So how many houses are going in to that area?
You're gonna have to give me a minute to go look. I can't tell you offhand. It is my recollection of bigger, but you'd have to give me a second to go look.
Okay, so while you're looking at that, so I am 63, and so this project very much interests me. I think that the design of the proposed designs of the different floor plans fits. And I currently live in Fox Run, so staying in the neighborhood is appealing. And knowing that I wouldn't have to shovel and I wouldn't have to mow, although I don't do those, my husband does. But there's just a lot of nice amenities that come with this. So I very much appreciate all that you've done to put this back on the table. So
okay, so that subdivision south of Fox Run, let's see, I'm counting 61 single family homes, and there were 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 threeplexes. Gives you an idea of the overall property.
So the overall neighborhood, when you are on 965 and then turn right onto Scales Bend, that whole image is going to be changing very soon to have that subdivision in with us too.
Yeah, I haven't heard much, to be honest with you. That development, I suspect that they're hitting the pause button based on the market conditions with the cost of construction. I just from what I've been noting, from what I'm seeing, we haven't seen a lot of construction of single family residences on separate lots, just because of the rising cost and the interest rates are really, at 6+%. We just haven't seen a lot of it. So
right.
we did a preliminary plat approval for that. I think it's called Buck Moon Villas now, but I haven't seen anything further on that. So I'm not sure if they're going to get under construction this year or not.
Okay. But this wouldn't, yeah. Okay, thank you.
And were those threeplexes on their threeplex townhomes?
On the Buck Moon Villas, the one south of Fox Run,
Yes.
yeah. So they were basically townhomes.
Okay.
So they had the 4 adjacent to Centro, and then they had 3 of them up on Dubuque Street.
Okay.
Thank you, sir.
All right, one quick question, then we'll go to Molly again. In the chat, the question is, if this is gated, will we still be able to use the current trail on the west side of it? We use it every day.
Yes, absolutely. The gate will be on the other side of the trail. The trail will still be public trail.
Yeah, and I'll jump in. One thing we've asked is that trail be widened to 8 feet to match. And that should be along that entire stretch, an 8-foot wide trail. So I believe the current rendition of the plan shows that it's an 8-foot wide trail. Yeah, and that would be for public access.
Correct.
All right, let's go Molly, back to Molly, and then we'll go back to Beth.
Yeah, this is Mark, actually Molly's husband. Yeah, we live at 605 Black Bear. We're right across the street from where this development's going to go. Couple things with the construction and whatnot. Are you planning on building these houses right away, one right after the other, or is it going to be once one is sold, you're going to build that, or how's this going to work? Because that's obviously a lot of construction, a lot of noise. So just that question for now.
We'll start with groups of them. We'll hopefully have pre-solds as we move along, as we start the process of building. But we'll probably start 5 specs and then roll in the next 5 specs. So we'll try to keep the pace up so it doesn't drag on and on. But we're hoping that in a year and a half we would be sold out 100%.
Okay, as far as the trees that look healthy over there, are you going to cut those trees down? The evergreen trees out by the house, or what are we doing with those?
A majority of the trees, like some of the old cedars and stuff, will come down.
Correct.
I obviously want to keep as much of the green space and the trees as I can, but we will have to do some grading. So if we can't get the grading to go to the detention basins, we'll have to move a tree or cut it down. But we're going to try leaving everything we can.
And we've moved a few trees, and it just, if they take, they take. You want to keep as many of the large trees as you can.
Okay, yeah, no problem there. Obviously, we were against the first housing development, or whatever you want to call it, prior to you guys. This seems to be a little better. I'm not really for or against it. I'm still on the fence about it, especially with the traffic this is going to bring. I'm not quite at retirement age. I'm 54 years old, so I think it's kind of weird, but life's changing, times are changing and whatnot. I really do think that a reduced speed limit needs to happen on this street. Like I said, we live right next to Scales Bend Road, and we see the traffic that comes in here on a Friday, Saturday, Sunday evening in the summer, especially with Bobbers or whatever that place is called now. It's open. We see it. So we'd like the city to relook at that. We just had somebody hit our fire hydrant a few weeks ago, took that out. Thank God it didn't like spray everywhere and whatnot. And the other thing is the pickleball court, and my wife brought this up last time. If any of you people are ever down in Florida, you know how loud pickleball courts are. What are you going to do to muffle that sound of the pickleball court?
The pickleball court primarily would probably be used inside unless we put it on the west side, or excuse me, on the east side of the building to help shelter the noise. It'll be more towards the sound will bounce towards the development, not away from it. And again, there'll be fencing, privacy fencing and stuff. I'm not sure how far we'll carry the privacy fencing around the Commons building, but it will be pretty much blocked off.
Okay. Yeah, that was kind of a big deal, and believe it or not. And like I said, I applaud you guys for doing what you're doing. This looks a lot better than the last suggestion. And I just hope to God, if you guys don't get approved, that we don't have to go through this like Cedar Rap has gone through with approving a casino, because I can't handle this every 6 months. So
I know. You know what,
just
Mark,
let you know.
I do want to say we agree actually on the speed limit. I've been driving down Scales Bend before, and there are kids trying to cross those crosswalks, and I get your point. I've driven that road many of times. Don't get me wrong, it's great if you're in a hurry to rush through there, but morning traffic, and then just the kids when they ride their bikes and stuff. I agree, and we're more than willing to work with the city on that and talk about speed limit, whatever it might be.
Okay, no, that sounds good. That's all I have. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Beth, we've got you next, and then we'll go back to Sloan. Go ahead, Beth.
Yeah. Well, first of all, do you guys have a website that we could go to see the plans a little bit more in detail and what, all of this information that is included?
Yeah, so if you, I shared a folder. It's a shared folder that I'm keeping the data that they're providing. So I'll share that again, but
that's fine.
I'll put the traffic study that I found from Scales Bend in there. Thank you, Nick. There it is. So I'll be kind of loading as I get information. I've asked for a couple of updates, nothing that would substantially change the plan, but a couple of things like the building footprint that I mentioned. So I'll be adding that to that shared folder, but that's probably the best place I can think of. It's a nice feature from Microsoft. I'll just try to have up-to-date information that the public can access.
Okay.
Yes, and I apologize. We don't have a website because we don't know for sure that we're coming. So it's very hard to start something and get information out there, and then all of a sudden we shut the site down. So if you would like anything, I mean, Ryan's more than he can share our information as well. Like, I can get you anything you're interested in.
Okay. Kind of like Sloan was saying earlier, the ownership concept is interesting, and I'm curious with appraisals and stuff, how that works on these units. How are they compared, and what are they compared to?
So essentially what the appraiser does is looks at the overall value of the property, price per square foot of the homes, the amenities, the green space area, and you get an overall appraisal on the PAD. So there is a value here with land and your building and everything. Here's the value of the property. And then you say X amount is common space, and then divide that up by the number of units. And then this is your price per square foot essentially on the units. Now, you can't narrow it down 100% until you know what units, because we have, 5-6 different plans that everyone is a little bit different in their square footage, but you get an overall square footage price. It's definitely a different appraisal, but going in what the value is. And you also know, so you're buying in your share at X amount, but your value, for example, like I said, and I'm using vintage estates just because they're established, your buy-in is let me look really quick, $250, but your actual share value is actually $439. So you have a ton of equity built in right there, which, helps with your loan if you're getting a loan, or if you're just paying cash and rolling into it. Like I said, a lot of people are downsizing and they have a ton of equity in their home. They turn around and just put it straight into this, and then they own a little bit. And then when they turn around and sell, they sell their share value, but the share, if there's natural appreciation, that share value will change according to, it changes daily, just like stocks and things like that. Like with appreciation, it will change. And then when you go to sell, you might have more than what you actually bought your share for.
Well, I guess that's kind of what I was getting to. It's not the initial appraisal that I'm asking about. It's the resale appraisal and, property gains and, things like that. So I guess I have a lot of concerns about that.
Yeah, there is a constant appreciation. You are correct. You are. It would change constantly. And every time someone buys someone, there still has to be an internal, every lender, everybody is always going to require an appraisal on a property. So there is still that aspect where you're going to have to go in, but you understand it's a co-op and you're buying a share. So it has to justify that share value and what it should be.
But are they appraising it compared to another condominium?
It's based off, yeah. So that's kind of complicated, and I apologize. Like we said, this is our first co-op, but essentially what you are doing is you are comparing to other co-ops and your own co-op within. So what you're doing is, it's not like you say, hey, I'm going to list at 350 because I think I can get it. It really comes down to actually you get a value for what your share is or what it has appreciated based off the numbers. And the co-op is constantly changing and they're constantly updating their numbers. And that's part of being the co-op, is then you get information constantly about what your shares are. Like if you own, for example, bank shares, they send you their year-end report of what your share value is. And that's kind of the same thing. It gets reevaluated every year. So, you know, end of the year, end of the new year, what your new share value is. And then it might change by January to July. So if you went to sell later, then you would essentially know that. But then every year there's an annual review of your shares.
And so Vintage Estates is not a co-op?
They are a co-op. Yes, they are.
They are. Okay. I thought you just said that this was the first one that you were doing as a co-op.
I'm sorry. This is the first one we have done. We actually aren't in on Vintage Estates.
Oh, I thought that was your development. Have you done it?
Sorry.
Have you had any other developments in the Iowa City area that we could look at?
Well, we've never done a co-op, but yes, Corey has done a lot of stuff over in the Deerfield area. There's down in Iowa City, Hidden Meadows, Solon. We have Old Mill Creek right now in Solon. We've done 3rd and 4th phase. We are now on to the 5th phase. There's actually quite a few in the area.
And why would you choose a co-op versus a condominium structure?
You know, it really did come down to pricing. It did.
Interest rates.
With the rates and the pricing and the way things are, and as fast as Vintage Estates sold out. We were talking to actually a few people in the community, and we were talking about it, and they have expressed that they want a place where they can do this and end up being snowbirds and not have to worry about maintenance, not have to. And so we just said, you know what, we're still talking about this contract on this land. Maybe we should look into this co-op. And we talked to an attorney, we talked to a lender, and it made sense to make it more affordable so the people on the fixed income, once you hit retirement, can still have a very nice place to go, but then also not worry about it when they go to Florida or Arizona for 3-4 months out of the year. And then still also aesthetically meet the neighborhood as far as single family homes versus the larger building we discussed last time.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, Sloan, go ahead.
Thank you. I just wanted to say something to all the neighbors that are on the call, and maybe anybody that asks you what happened or listens to the recording. Someone had talked about how they don't want to do this every 6 months. None of us want to do this every 6 months. I don't want to do it. I don't like confrontation, but this is my home. This is my view. This is my neighborhood. This is my property value. This is our quality of life. And these developers having a good deal from Solon Bank isn't a reason for us to just roll over and accept a development that doesn't fit our neighborhood. Nobody wants to be in this meeting. Nobody wants to fight this, but the seriousness of it is real. The gentleman who said he doesn't want to look at a farm, I don't know why he bought a property in our neighborhood. I mean, it's just an absolute gem. It's such a positive, I think, for 99% of the people on the call, that we can be this close to everything we want and still have a farm view. I mean, it's so charming and unique. And I'm just worried that maybe as a neighborhood, we'll get kind of beat down and just say, well, we don't want to keep fighting it. We'll never win. And then we have 34 houses and a clubhouse and a pickleball court and a pool in our backyard. It's like a serious thing. And I hope that everybody thinks about their property values and their view and their love of the neighborhood before we just say, I guess it's fine. We'll just accept it. I mean, these developers don't know the neighborhood. He keeps referring to walking to coffee shops and bike trails. No one is walking to coffee shops from this neighborhood. I mean, they don't know the neighborhood. And so I guess that would just be my plea for the neighbors to just don't get beat down. And if you're not for it, for all the reasons that I'm not for it, make sure you email Ryan, make sure you speak out.
Have you never walked to Capana? It's a coffee shop that's super close.
It's probably a 30-minute walk to Capana. I mean, it's not close. I don't know. If people want to speak up and say that they're walking to Capana at 55 years and older, then I'm wrong. But I've lived here 17 years. I have not walked to Capana, no.
Nick, anyone else in the queue, or is?
I don't see any other folks in the queue or any other questions that I don't believe. Just a couple notes, then I'll make sure that you get those, Ryan, but I don't see any other questions in there. Oh, got, sorry. Hold on. Sorry, switching tabs here. Kevin, go ahead.
I'll just say that, I mean, there's a lot of people in this neighborhood that are on each side of this issue, but I guess I would like to say thank you to the proposed developers for taking the community's feedback seriously last fall and coming back with a new proposal. You know, I was very opposed to the last proposal. I'm still on the fence about this one, and it's going to be a hot issue. It's going to divide our neighborhood, but thank you for your professionalism and at least listening to our feedback and not trudging ahead with that last plan. And I think there probably will be some revisions that may need to happen to this to get more community support. I don't know. I can't speak to that, but thank you for your professionalism and listening to our feedback last time. Thanks.
Thank you.
So I guess we'll, unless Nick, do you have any more?
Nope.
Okay, I'll call it last call, so to speak. I do want to say, if anyone's thinking of speaking, I appreciate the decorum this evening. I appreciate everybody being respectful. This to me is how the process should go. It's fine if you're not in favor of it. It's fine if you are in favor of it. You know, this is the process, and you know, we take this public input. The developer takes your comments, and you know, you provide it to the planning commission and the city council, who ultimately makes the decision. So again, I'll state it again. We do value your public input. Again, if you want to put things in writing for the planning commission and city council, please send me an email, and I will incorporate that into the packet. But again, we'll do one last call. And again, thank you for being respectful. We appreciate your time and your participation in this process.
Thank you, everybody. We appreciate it.
Ryan, there's one question in the chat that's just, when would you need emails by?
Yep. So there's a formal process for objections. In order for objections to be, and there's a legal process for landowners within a 200-foot radius of the surrounding property. So those need to be before the public hearing closes for the city council. So the planning commission, if this stays on schedule, would consider this item on April 4th. And then the city council would have a public hearing on the April the 18th. Now that's just specifically for objections to have a legal meeting. If you wish to, obviously, if you want the planning commission to review it, I would appreciate it like the day before the meeting, which again, it's April 4th for planning commission. I typically get the packet out the Friday. Let me back that up. I'm sorry. I typically get the packet out the Friday before the meeting. I can incorporate it into the packet if I get it on Friday. If I get it on Monday or something like that, we'll just forward those individual emails to the planning commission. And then we, as public comments come in, we create a separate packet for the city council and create that. So ideally, they would come in for the 18th, but again, as I mentioned, there's 3 readings for city council. So if they come in after that, that's fine too. Great question. Thank you. Okay, with that, then I guess we'll go ahead and call this meeting to an end just before 7 o'clock. Again, thanks everybody. And again, my email's been provided a couple of times. Again, my name is Ryan Rusnak. I'm pretty easy to get a hold of. So if you have questions or comments or want to chat about this or life in general, please reach out to me. So thanks everybody and have a great night. And I'm sure we'll speak soon.